Greetings and welcome to another powerful edition of the Community Defender Talk Show, one powerful hour of truth in a day of falsehood. I'm your host, Brother Darrell Muhammad, and we're so happy that you have tuned in to tonight's program. And we have a very special show planned for you. We're glad that you have tuned in to tonight's program. And I wanted to mention a couple of things before we get to our guest. He is somebody that should be familiar to our viewing audience because he's been on before to talk about a very, very serious issue, what we believe to be a murder that occurred of his son. But I wanted to mention this right quick to you, and that is that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan did a press conference, and that was this past Thursday. It is on YouTube, and it is on my Facebook page, Darrell Muhammad on Facebook. I've opened up my Facebook page so that anybody who wishes to check that out or get that link to that press conference, which lasted for a while, but which has pertinent information of guidance in it, I believe, for our people and for America itself. So I want you to look at that. And there's also a lecture that he did called Separation or Death that I really, really believe that there's divine instruction in that for all of our people. So I wanted to put that out there first because I want you to remember it going forward. And the show that we do each and every time we're on the Community Defender is only further evidence of those things that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has said and of the veracity of what he is saying and what he is proving in his press conference, as well as that lecture that he gave, that wonderful message called Separation or Death. So I just wanted to lay that out there to the viewing audience, and we'll get into that. We'll discuss that, and with the help of God, we'll have clips of Minister Farrakhan and hopefully start a greater and greater dialogue here in this area. Now, Reverend White, I'm glad to have you on this program, and I know that you and your family have been dealing with the issue of your son's murder by law enforcement for quite some time. Something where, as you had said before, the coroner, which I personally believe is a no good liar, to put something out there like that, that's my belief, has put a rubber stamp on the lies of law enforcement. And you, as a concerned parent, are looking into this through the legal channels that this country has given us, right, through the court system. And so I had read some things in the paper that didn't go into a lot of detail, but I understand that your wrongful death suit is in federal court and that they tried to get it thrown out. If you could go into, I guess for the viewing audience, what happened to your son, and then where we are in the court case that is designed to give justice to him.
Thank you, Brother Darrell, and again for the Community Defender as well as the listening audience, man. We sure appreciate you having us on. And,
yes, sir. Gotta have
you. We
on.
definitely appreciate that you all are continuing to give us a platform to actually seek justice for my son, not only for my son, but for those. And as you said, on March the 3rd, 2014, I received a phone call from my son that was in New Iberia that they had picked up Victor White III, my youngest son. And the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Department said that he was involved in a fight at the Hop-In store on Lewis Street. And so I called, they said for me to call Katie Morrell of the Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation Division. So I called, they didn't know what I was talking about, transferred me back to the switchboard of the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Department. Then they transferred me back, and this was like a 5:41 on March the 3rd. Well, so on about 30 minutes later, she calls me. Katie Morrell calls me and said that my son was killed. Well, she said my son was deceased. And I asked her how. She said it was under investigation. So she told me that she needed me to hurry up. We were living in Alexandria at the time. She said to hurry up, come to New Iberia, but be careful. So when we arrived in New Iberia, I was saying, well, I called again to see about my son. Well, she told me at that time that my son's body was being transferred, as we spoke, to Louisiana Forensic Lab in Lafayette. And I told her, well, I asked her, I said, well, how do y'all know that's my son? She told me, well, because we ID'd him according to his Louisiana State issued ID. And we found that to be speculative because later on we found his ID still in his room where they were living. And with the Social Security card, because they didn't have that on that night, even the guy that was with him, Isaiah Lewis, he did verify they had no identification on them that night when they was arrested. He knew my son. And so, you know, and as we look forward to our day in court and for justice, well, she not only said that, she told me that I couldn't see my son. When I asked her, I said, well, I want to see and make sure y'all have my son. She told me, well, no, we can't do that. He was, you know, again, that his body was being transferred to the Louisiana Forensic Lab in Lafayette. Well, an hour later, I told her, no, ma'am, I want to see him. I know it's my son. So again, she said, give me an hour, called back and said, Mr. Rivet, who was the coroner that night, that pronounced my son as being deceased, and that someone from Louisiana Criminal Investigation Division, State Police. But they said that was a stipulation. Only one person can go back and see him. We could only see him from the neck up. And so we agreed to that. When they came, again, Mr. Rivet and Lieutenant Trahan, which was supposed to supervise, would go back, look at my son. First thing I seen, my son had a mark from the top of his left eyebrow all the way down below his jawbone. And so I asked him what happened. His lips, you know, were puffed and beat. So I asked him what happened. They told me they couldn't tell me. I said, well, how did my son die? You know, state trooper told me to ask Mr. Rivet, and Mr. Rivet told me to ask the state trooper. So again, we passing the buck. No one told me it was under investigation. So we leave New Iberia, go back to Alexandria, Louisiana. Darren Sofas called me, and he told me to go on the Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation police block. And he told me that there was a press release about my son. And I went on the press release, read it, got angry, still angry right today. I'm angry right today because it continued to go on. And I read it when it said that my son was involved in a fight at the high-end store and that they stopped him, and when they stopped him, they found a small amount of narcotics. Later, they tried to say there was marijuana and cocaine. And so again, I found that to be speculative as well because we know they were planting drugs. And so, and it said he became uncooperative when he got into the police processing place. He became uncooperative, refused to get out the car. And so they're saying when the officer got out to go get for help, said he fired one shot, shot himself in the back. Well, 6 months later, we get a coroner report. He wasn't shot in the back, he was shot in the chest. So they called me and my wife, we go get the coroner report from Carditch. And he agreed with Christopher Tabe. That's who did the autopsy, Christopher Tabe. And they said that they ruled my son's death a suicide based on the fact that the officer said that my son said something to the fact that I'm gone now, or tell my family I love them, I'm gone now. And so they said they ruled it as a suicide based upon that. You know, so, but I knew better. We've been fighting and trying to, you know, seek justice. So it'll be 4 years. This coming March, it will be 4 years. And finally, as you was talking about the lead-in part that Magistrate Patrick Hanna just released a 54-page when they wanted to get it dismissed, you know, and our attorney wrote, and so he released a 54-page ruling showing the inconsistencies of the investigation on both parts with the Sheriff's Department, on board the Sheriff's Department said they wasn't involved with Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation Division, with the also with the coroner's report, as well as the transfer of chain of custody of my son's possession. And so we're looking at now that come February, you know, one of the things was that they were saying about my cause of death. He said, well, a judge is going to allow the jury to decide whether it was suicide, whether it was accidental death, or whether the cop shot him, which is Justin Ortiz. We've got to put his name out there. Justin Ortiz, which is right now he's a patrolman at the Chickamauga tribe and
Sure.
down up in Berwick, right, Berwick. Yeah, so he's back as a patrol officer. You know, so my thing is, how can a murderer leave one law enforcement agency when there's when it's pending, but we know he murdered him. He didn't commit suicide, but he can leave and go to another law enforcement agency and do that. See, so again, they found inconsistencies in the way that supposedly was handled. That the coroner himself saying that he rendered kind of like an opinion, didn't base it on facts. He said what the officer said. Well, that's not a fact when they did the autopsy. So how can you know? So that in and of itself, you know, he rendered an opinion. He believed what the officer said and not looking at what the facts say. You know, and so we see that, and then on top of that, we bring in the question whether my son was tested for gunpowder residue. When we asked the coroner, he said yes. We asked the coroner, well, why didn't you? Was the officer? He said, well, the officer wouldn't be tested for gunpowder residue because of the fact that they fire their guns all the time. You know, but we talking about a throwdown gun. What if they had a throwdown gun? What about that? So if you tested them, you know, I mean, they all work together. We know it's all together and they work together. You know, like I said, it was so many of them with the gunpowder residue, the testing of the balloon of my son, the balloon of the officer. You know, inconsistent in that statement, whether they was at the scene of the crime. Stacy Smith was another bringing that, you know, on the Facebook page. She changed her name while on Facebook page. And when it occurred, and then they said she wasn't working there no more, and then all of a sudden we see her with a jacket that says crime scene investigator. You know, but yet instead it said she was a photographer. Right, well, when we brought up the point that they said that she was showing pictures of my son, well, that goes in line with they said we didn't know what was talking about. You know, so therefore it's just so much out there, and we know they lied. We know that they would concoct a story, you know, to save their souls because they would look at the sheriff, the ringleader. You know, so we're hopeful and we're prayerful, you know, that when that day comes, that not only will this occur about that my son didn't kill himself, but also we can pursue some other avenues to bring about change in that community and in that parish. You know, because now it was just not affecting my son. You know, they're still doing the same thing. Police brutality still exists in Iberia Parish.
Absolutely. Well, you know, you've been going through a very long ordeal, and you know, when somebody is, I think one attorney called it a Houdini move, where you know you're handcuffed behind your back very tightly, but yet somehow you're able to fire a gun in front of yourself. So you're handcuffed behind your back, and while handcuffed, you fire a shot in front of yourself through your chest, and that's supposed to be suicide. You know, those kinds of things, and it's good that the judge did not follow the party line and did do something fair, which is not throw it out and allow it to proceed to trial, so that more facts, more things can come out. Because I think that what the enemy is going to attempt to do, as they always do, is put the victim on trial. The victim who a lot of times can't speak for himself. And by putting the victim on trial, they intend to create doubt and to make maybe members of the jury believe that maybe whatever happened to him was deserving anyway. This is always their strategy. But as you pursue justice in this matter, you know, and it's one of those things that you're going to have to be mindful of, because what we're trying to find out is what happened to your son. We're not trying to find out what the good or the bad character of your son. I understand that your son was a very good and nice human being. He was a good person, working hard, a good person who was loved by his family. So it's a situation to where, but his character is not the issue. The issue is whether or not he fired, while being handcuffed, a bullet from the front, which is not possible. That's the issue. Everything else is out of the window. So hopefully there'll be some significant pushback that brings in anything other than the forensic facts, what's possible, what's not possible in that particular circumstance. And I just believe that it's a situation to where I believe that the judge is gonna know what's going on, but you know that jury is gonna have to look at this, and however they rule on it is I guess to some degree what we're gonna be left with. But understand that the enemy always has a strategy. Their strategy is always to take the victim, who may not even be here to speak for themselves, and put them on trial rather than to deal with the facts of the actual case. And that's just what it is. That's what they did with Michael Brown. They put Michael Brown on trial,
Yes.
and Alton Sterling on trial in the media. But the issue is what happened that night, and whether or not Alton deserved to be shot 3 times and then shot 3 more times after he was flipped over. At what point was the officer not in danger or didn't feel he was in danger? So all these things we have to look at, but because they've lied, I think that they put themselves in a legal pickle because they have knowingly submitted a false police report, and all of those people work together to echo like an echo chamber of lies that go throughout the community. And having Sheriff Ackle in that area does not help at all for the pursuit of justice. However, I want to commend you on your courage as a man who is with your son from the beginning to the end, and even after the end, to pursue justice for your son. And I know that what you're seeking is justice.
Yeah, that's definitely correct, brother. That's what we're looking for, justice. And I've always said, when they ask me, well, what would justice look like? Give my son his life back. That's what justice would look like. But being as we can't do that, I do believe the individuals that are responsible for murdering my son, I think they should be brought in the same court of law that they'll try everybody else, and held to a higher standard. They should be held to a higher standard because they wear a badge, they drive vehicles that say they are to protect and serve. And as you made mention of my son, they were trying to say he was a contortionist. Here it is that my son could move and maneuver his hands. But the thing is, one of the important factors with that is, brother, there is my son was left-handed. So how would he shoot himself on the right side? You see, and so I asked that to the coroner when he was asking. He looked at dumbfounded when I said, so you said my son shot himself on the right side? He said, yes. I said, my son is left-handed. So then he said that my son he was limber enough, in the words were my son was limber enough to actually move his hand around. And so I asked him, I said, well, how would you know my son? You didn't know my son. So how would you know that? And I asked him, a question that he didn't answer that was, come back to mind. I asked him, had he seen my son? So he didn't answer that question. So whoever, when Christopher Tate did the autopsy, evidently he never seen my son. So Carl Ditch never seen my son. He went off information that was on a piece of paper, whatever they said, whatever he read to me when he was reading to me and my wife their decision and the evidence that he had in the autopsy report. That's all he had. So he didn't do the autopsy. He never observed my son's movement. So how would he know that my son was limber enough, whatever? But we know if you put a set of handcuffs on behind your back and sit in the back of a police cruiser, and there ain't that much room in there, not that much room in the back of that cruiser for you to do all that they're saying. And like I said, my thing, one of the other parts that stuck out to me is that they said that he was in a locked cruiser, and the officer went to go get help. So how would he hear my son say, I'm gone now? How would he hear my son say anything if he's in a cruiser and he's saying he's trying to go get help? And as you said, so we're seeking justice, and we're going to fight, and we're going to continue to fight.
And I tell you what, that's a very convenient so-called recollection. And for something as simple as what was going on, which was very simple, obviously some mistaken identity, outright lies from top to bottom. And it's this kind of thing, repeatedly, over time, because, police brutality was a problem for our people in the 30s and 40s. There were shootings that the community would get involved in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and all the way up until now. And so, our history in this country is replete with these kinds of things that continue to occur with no adequate redress of our grievance. And so, let's see what the caller has to say. Go ahead, caller. You're on there with the Community Defender.
Yes, good evening. Such a fantastic show on the topic, the real gangster, New Iberia Police Department. I would like to say, Reverend White, you've always had our support, and we definitely know that between Justin Ortiz, they're the real killers of your son. And with all that's been going on in New Iberia with the recent shooting, where are all these youngsters getting these guns from? And the way Sheriff Ackle, he gets up on the media and say that people know who do it and they need to tell. Well, he had 8 officers, 8 of his finest officers who was convicted of lying, who was convicted of covering things up, that he gave them the order. They had a certain day where you could go, it was going to be the NIGGER day, where they go in and they break down doors, arrest people, beat them up. So that topic is befitting. New Iberia is the biggest gang, and a gang really stands for somebody that's in power, somebody that have finances and everything. And Al really remind me of Al Capone, even though Al Capone, he was only convicted of racketeering, but he was one of the biggest criminals around. So, Sheriff Ackle, that topic is befitting to you, and thank you so much, Reverend White. Keep up the good work, sir.
Yes, ma'am. We definitely appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely appreciate that vote of confidence. And the thing is, brother, it's good that God has blessed you with the courage to continue to pursue this, because so often, things kind of fizzle out. And, one crisis leads to another crisis, leads to another crisis. And there's so many crises until, as a people, we almost get desensitized to the murder that goes on. Even in Baton Rouge, for example, after Alton Sterling, there have been unarmed people shot by the sheriff deputies. An unarmed person was shot by police in Baton Rouge a few days ago. So this kind of law enforcement oppression and murder of black people continues to go on. And as a people, I'm just gonna say this as a remedy. As a people, unified with what Minister Farrakhan calls a nervous system. And, in your body, there's a nervous system. So if you stub your toe, your head knows. Your whole body knows about the toe and feels the pain of the toe. And so as a community, we have to begin to develop the kind of nervous system where when one person when something happens to your son, we all feel it. We all have that, not just sympathy, but empathy for that whole situation. And when you look at the fact that Dylan Roof, who went into a church in Charlotte, North Carolina, and murdered 9 people just because they were black, and said so, he was able to raise, I believe, millions of dollars online. The murderer of Darren Wilson was able to raise millions of dollars. So evidently these white supremacists are supporting the murderers of black people all the way around. And that same kind of mindset appears to be in the coroner's office. It appears to be in the state police situation. And really, what they call an investigation looks like an attempted cover-up. It really wasn't an investigation, it was a cover-up. And sometimes when they use the word investigation, which means to uncover and discover, what they're really doing is calling it an investigation, but they're trying to cover it all up. But this, what they are saying happened, is absolutely physiologically impossible. and certainly improbable. Very, very much so. So it should be, and keep in mind, the enemy is going to try to stack the jury with as many racist rednecks as they can put on the sucker. And that's just the play that they run. They're going to try to use their peremptory challenges to strike black jurors, which are the challenges that you use to that you don't where you don't have to strike someone for cause. So they're going to use all of that to whiten the jury as much as they can, and then they feel that they can utilize the nature of those people to steer the whole thing in another direction. So hopefully, as we get ready for the trial and decide what evidence or what things can be let in, hopefully all of the other speculative things that they would bring up to impinge upon the character of your son will be excluded from, and we'll just deal with just the facts. Can a handcuffed man who was searched twice, who did not have a gun on him, suddenly get a gun out of nowhere and while handcuffed in the back shoot himself in the front? What are the chances of that?
And not only that, Brother Dad, the thing about that is that also he was working and just pulled a double shift. He had completed a FAFSA, and he was getting ready to was going to look at going to the community college for welding. You know, also they had money to go buy him a car and get down payment and everything for an apartment. You see, so it just didn't stack up. You know? It really doesn't.
Yeah, those are not the suicidal people don't go to work and make plans for the future. And that's just real.
I just talked to him that morning. You know, I talked to him Sunday morning. I just talked to him that Sunday morning, and matter of fact, my daughter, mother, son, they were together Sunday evening. You know, so and then here Monday morning, he's dead. You know, so no, it doesn't add up. And they want to say it was suicide. You know, his spiritual background doesn't even that's not even a consideration. You know, they may consider all things, but that's not a consideration.
Well, I'm gonna say this unequivocally. And I want everybody, because I know that there are people who don't like what I've said on this program. And, you know, there are people who have all kind of homicidal thoughts maybe about me as a black man, you know, on television like this. But I just want to say to the viewing audience, to everybody, I want to live. I do not under any circumstances desire to take my life. If anybody ever says I killed myself, they're lying. Life is good. It's a gift from God, and I want to keep that gift going as long as I possibly can. Suicide is against the religion of Christians as well as Muslims. Because when you commit suicide, you're saying that you don't have the faith to allow God to work you through the situation. And those of us who are in faith, we know that whatever God brings you to, he can bring you through. Yes, and so that is why suicide is not even, even in our thought process. It's relying on God to get us through whatever we're facing, even if it's incarceration, even if it's a law enforcement officer. Because my God is more powerful than the police. My God and your God is more powerful than the state police. And there's nothing that they can do that will make me want to end. That's right. The only life that I got. You know, what my mother went through great pain and my father went through great sacrifice to give me, that I'm just going to end it because I'm having a difficult time at the moment. That doesn't make sense. So I just want to say this for anybody that's thinking crazy in this crazy season that we live in. I just want to say that if you're thinking crazy, Brother Darrell is not suicidal. I love life. I have grandchildren. I have children. I love them. Children are doing well. Life is good for me. I'm blessed.
Yes, beyond measure.
So I just want to put it out there in case anybody is thinking wrong or thinking a certain way. I love living. Okay?
Yes.
And I intend to, I have a few more graduations I have to attend, probably a few weddings, and I look forward to attending those as well as you. So anybody thinking crazy, yeah, we want to live. So just understand that. So
Yes,
go ahead, brother.
and as you were saying, Brother Darrell, that's right. Life is too good,
Yeah,
too blessed, too blessed.
you got to put it out there,
yes,
man.
sir. Because
Because we
there's
got
no way.
these
Yes,
doggone snakes out here.
Yes, sir. That will. As I said, I was trying to sit up and say that was my son. But we know better than that. Like I said, my son. Life was too good for him at that point. He was.
That's right.
Life had been rejuvenated, and so therefore, then to come right back, not knowing him, as you said, the thing they want to do is they'll try to demonize him. Just like when we called and we was seeking information about my son, they said, well, because he committed suicide, and it was our Beard Parish Sheriff's Department and the DA's office, our Beard Parish DA's office. They said that we were not victims because of the fact that my son committed suicide. They said we wasn't victims, And so I'm listening at what the lady was telling me over the phone, and I'm saying to myself, how can you say that we are not victims? I lost my son. He was in the care and the custody, supposedly, of you all. And now you're going to tell me that we aren't victims? They don't understand what a victim is,
Absolutely, and especially when it's based on a total lie and fabrication, which is easy from a prima facie basis to be able to see that it is actually a lie. And I think that the judge knows it already, and I think that the jury will know it when they come in. And certainly everybody who has been watching this program, they better know that it's an absolute lie. Go ahead, caller, you're on there with the Community Defender.
Yes, sir. I wanted to make it clear the people that are into the racist groups of any kind are watched highly by the FBI, but they have no covering by the Constitution or the amendments, nothing they do backs them legally in this country at all. They cannot exist on their ground only and say they have rights because they have none. They cannot. They're breaking the law. Everything to the white supremacists. I've seen people trying to recruit people with little business cards, KKK and stuff like that, but they're not covered in the Constitution, any of the amendments at all. It goes totally against the grain of the Constitution. And so whoever lied to them and taught them, probably their parents basically, hanging out with the wrong crowd, to be totally hate-monging atheists. I don't have to go into details, I see it, but they're not covered. They have no right to march. A lot of them people are going to convert somewhere. That's why we pray for them. I've seen hateful people all my life, but they're not covered at all. So they're just a free willy out in the field looking, stomping around for nothing, And most of them people are going to try to defend their rights, like them trying to defend heavy metal music or something, It ain't going to work. They think they have a right to, but then they find out they're vexed. They're really standing for a negative thing that the Constitution, and even in Islam, read the Jewish Bible, all that, you can't stand on that ground and expect to get anywhere. Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
sir.
caller. The one thing I will say, with respect to what you're saying, is that there is a aspect of the Constitution called the First Amendment, which deals with freedom of speech.
Yes, sir.
And so a person, while I may not like it, if they believe that because I'm a black man, that I'm somehow less intelligent, less deserving, they are allowed to say that. And of course, I would want to know who I'm dealing with. There are so many people who believe racist things, are taught racist things in their home. But keep in mind, the caller would give the impression that racism is an exception. Actually, racism is the norm. If it was not the norm, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. We wouldn't be dealing with all of these issues. If it was not the norm, you would have been able to get justice from somewhere before now. It wouldn't be going on 4 years if racism was not the norm. The normal thing is to dismiss it, to devalue the life of that person, because these are black deputies that were involved in a shooting. One of them has been sentenced to 40 years. Didn't take long. White people didn't have to protest, but he's been sentenced to 40 years. And with the truth in sentencing law, he's got to do 85% of that 40 years before he'll be eligible for parole according to Louisiana law. It's just something that. So my whole thing is, what's the issue? You know, the issue is that black people are devalued. Go ahead and call you on there with the community defender.
Greetings, Brother Darrell, and good evening, Reverend White. Great to see you again.
Yes, sir.
You know,
Always.
I'm chuckling at the previous caller. It's not to demean him, but his statement about race, the Constitution does not cover racist people, or whatever he was going with that. I'm trying to figure this out. The last time I looked, the White House is full of white supremacists, and basically he was sworn in under a Constitution. The American Constitution is racist in a sense. I mean, come on, I'm dealing with reality here. You know, Donald Trump and the people that uphold him, the people that voted for him, and I would say 70% of the people, white Caucasian Lafayette voted for him. You know, so that tells you a lot. So I beg to differ with that caller. But anyway, Brother Darrell and Reverend White, listen, if you had that many deputies that pled in the case in the Iberia Parish, and most of them were members of these little cliques, elite squad that kicked in doors and so forth, and policed the jail and special units, and they were engaged in covering up for Sheriff Apple that long. And what makes you think that they didn't cover up the issue with your son, Reverend White? So any person who think along logical lines and look at all the facts, and it's not just those 8 deputies, Reverend White and Brother Darrell. It was many other cases that was disposed in Iberia Parish and the city of New Iberia over the years. So that lends itself to say something is wrong with the case with young Mr. White. And you would think that Iberia Parish government and city leaders would try to right that wrong. They haven't, and you know, Reverend White, I'm still chewing on that rag that the city council did not apologize for all these things. The city council did not acknowledge that they have a deep-seated problem with law enforcement historically in Iberia Parish. And most of all, there's no talk of change, even with bringing back a new city police. So we're going to probably get the same replay of what happened when they disbanded in 2003. And the issue is, Reverend White, why did this got disbanded in 2003? A city the size of 30-somewhat thousand, having all these issues. And look, and lastly, look at all these killings in New Iberia. Brother Darrell, we're in the midst of supposedly, quote-unquote, gang warfare. They want to call these young people who are, I think, are just cliques that are being formatted, something is being formatted between them. What makes a person not think that law enforcement has something to do a lot with these young people retaliating on each other because somebody snitched on them or somebody said something about it? So this law enforcement entity, along with the court system in this area, they cannot be trusted. So people, I don't blame the people who don't want to come forward and speak out against those retaliation, because you can't trust law enforcement to protect you. You might wind up with somebody shooting up your house. So the thing is this, black folks, check out Minister Farrakhan's speech, this last speech. It coincides with what's going on locally all over the place. We need to look to another direction, that old failed formula of lighting a candle and doing prayers in the street. I'm sorry, and it's not nothing against any from a religious perspective, Reverend White, but that has failed miserably in our communities. Thank you, brothers, so much.
And as you said something, I realize with the calling and what you were saying with religion, you know, when I look at about what was going on with us, the Nation of Islam, and all my brothers and sisters that are supposed to be Baptists and the, you know, the Protestant movement and all of this, you know, that we were in Mighty Temple. Other than that, you know, we were left high and dry. You know, at the protests, at the rallies, right? They weren't there. So we're talking about our good Christian brothers and sisters. So in times like these, where are they? at the protests, at the rally. We're supposed to be in the forefront because our brothers and sisters are getting killed. So that's my thing. That was a clarion call made out to the churches. So where are they? They're sitting there, and as I said, in Mark Lewis down in New Iberia, when he told me he wanted to wait and see. He told me before that he would come forward and say anything with me or join hand in hand with me in our fight for justice for my son. He wanted to wait and see when the facts were established. What facts? Well, as we just heard, they distort the facts. They lie about the facts, and then they create facts that aren't really facts. But because of who they are, they become facts, are known to be facts. See, so therefore, I look at those types of individuals and how they stand, and we saying we preach the word, and I don't worry about backlash because, as you said, see, my God is bigger than man anyway, so I don't have to worry about that. But I'm saying I had these conversations just like when I had a conversation with Louis Alco when he was elected, and we was talking about that area over in the West End, and he said the thing that was going down there was culturally connected. So therefore, there was nothing you could be able to do about that, So, and that's why, to me, they were sending a clear signal that they wanted that to go on. See, so when they asked about the killing and the murder down in the West End and why is it going on, because the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Department, they have a plan there. He sets the tax base, the tax rate, and so therefore, but there's no economic development in the West End. So there's no economic development. They're not even they're not placing anything new. There's no development there. They don't have any incentive to do anything because they suck in the life of them. And it's the sheriff's department that sucked the life of them when they were nigger knocking out there. When they go down in there, and guess what? They demean the individuals that live there, so that scares everybody else. See, so that's what he did. He said to intimidate the people. And see, so the thing is that our God knows the amount and the means our oppressor used to keep us oppressed. But it's up to us as a people, and as you said before, we need to come together. We need to unite, because united we should stand. We could do more if we unite together, come together as brothers and sisters, regardless of what our differences are. Because as it says, if my son's death impacted me, it impacted everybody else that was there. And they said it should be seen because maybe it's my son, but it could be yours as well. You see, so and I said, that evidently Louis got a lot of them in back pocket. They supported him on the down low. They support him on the down low and then get on the phone and call me and say, well, brother, I support you. I'm with you. Well, if you support me, you're with me. Come stand with me. Stand in the forefront. Be seen, because as I said, I'm not worried about this. Say I killed myself. I'm on a highway traveling up and down. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to commit suicide. I have children. I got grandkids. And so I want to see them live. And so, in my life, it's not a boring one at all. You see? So I wouldn't be killing myself, but then I wouldn't even think about killing myself because there's more work to do. We have to get out in these communities. Got the one Guillory down in Mamu, we have to get out in these communities and band together, join together, and so individuals can see that we're not separated, we are together. But the enemy, that's his deal. If I can get y'all to separate, then he can get us to doubt, then he can get us to deny each other's rights. And so as the caller was saying, and Iberia, the people of Iberia Parish had to come together. It's not about the sheriff's department, because who you think giving them an AK-47? A young black man ain't going to go get an AK-47, but the police officer got him sitting at his own. He could buy 40, 50 of them. The enemy has them. And so the enemy knows what it takes to keep you oppressed. So he go get the guns and he put them in the neighborhood, and you trying to figure out where they come. Well, they already know they're not going to tell on them, because then their family's at risk. See, if they're at risk of losing his entire family. So what the parish do, they take him and put him in jail. And I'll be a parish detention center, and then they got another slave labor. There's free slave labor all over again, because almost 98% of those that are incarcerated are African American. Then they set the bail, the bond is so high that they can't get out. Right. So if I could keep him out, now the child is at home, the mother at home, right? Well, she trying to work 2 jobs, but she don't have transportation, right? There's no bus system. Large as Iberia Parish here, they don't have a bus system. They don't have a city police department. They don't have a bus system. So there's a struggle. And they're keeping it that way because that's the way they can keep you oppressed. As long as they're on top, they're superior. They want us to believe that. But we need to understand, you're not superior to us. You know, we're just as educated as you are. We're just as intelligent, and some of us are more intelligent than some of you all are.
Just
you know,
to survive.
So you know, so that's the thing.
right.
And so now we have to go into survival mode. You know, so therefore we don't look beyond them. And as it was saying about the politicians, you know, sitting down there, and they're not trying to change anything. You know,
Well, yeah,
getting in is one
they're
thing.
benefiting from things being as they are.
Yes, sir.
Very often,
Yeah.
and so they don't want to upset their check or their grant money that might be coming in. Now, you know, it's interesting that you were saying that you had talked to one of your brothers in faith, and that one of our brothers said he wanted to wait until the facts came out before he stood. See, a lot of times what happens is that we hide a vice by claiming a virtue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's virtuous to not jump to conclusions. So you say, well, I'm not going to jump to the conclusions. I'm going to wait until the facts come out. But if they put something on the news and the news reports something, they accept that as truth.
Yes.
Instantly. That is the facts. So what are they saying? You know, we had an activist who used some words that were somewhat demeaning to the female.
Mm-hmm.
And on one level, you have to say he should have used better language. But all of these preachers came out on a statement that he made without even consulting with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They all of these preachers lined up to attack him on behalf of white womanhood when they would not line up on behalf of black womanhood, black fatherhood, black manhood. We never heard from them when an unarmed black man was shot. But if somebody white was offended, there was a whole press conference separating himself from another person who was a reverend like them. So, you know, we really a lot of times as a community are off balance, and this thing is going to heat up with Trump. As Minister Farrakhan said, he's peeling off the onion of white civility. And he said some years ago that at a certain point, the majority community was going to pull off the mask of civility and show you the fangs of a real beast. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing today. That's what a lot of us have been seeing it for years, but we're seeing it open nowadays, and we're seeing it become fashionable. Remember, there was an Aryan Nation / Ku Klux Klan rally, and when a young woman got ran over, Trump said, "Now here we have a racist rally, a rally of people who, in the Klan, in the Aryan Nation, they came there as racist.
Yes.
It wasn't that they came there as just regular citizens. They didn't even call themselves conservatives. They came to the place as racists." And what did Donald Trump? There were good people on both sides. So you mean they had the Klan on one side, counter protesters against the Klan on the other side, and yet they were good. That means you consider the Klan as good. You got to think about what this man said and the tone that he's setting in this country. It's a tone that really is designed to put our backs as a people against the wall. And Donald Trump, like a lot of people in government, desires to violently put down our people. And that's something that he said about Chicago. And believe it or not, of all of the hundreds of cities in America, Baton Rouge is one of the cities that is being targeted by one of the 12 cities being targeted by the Trump administration for crime is right down the road in Baton Rouge. So, brothers and sisters in Louisiana, you are under and if Baton Rouge is targeted, which is the capital, that means that all of us are targeted. And we have to look at it like that. The government of the United States, under the direction of Donald Trump, is targeting our people. And when they say they're fighting crime, that's just a farce. Because if they were fighting crime, they would be locking up all of these people who were hooked on these painkillers, these white people hooked on these painkillers. They're not locking them up. They're saying we need to be compassionate. But they didn't need to be compassionate when it's us on drugs.
In the 80s
When they
crack.
become white, like Michelle Alexander said, the real factor in why these people are being treated differently is their whiteness. And that's just the bottom line. Your son would have been talked to for a second, patted on the back if he was a white boy, and told to have a nice day, if he was in fact involved in a fight. Because if you've ever been on LSU's campus, you know they fight all the time. All the time at those clubs around LSU.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody winds up dead with them falsely claiming that it was a
And
suicide.
the fraternities are suspended
Oh.
because of the drinking, the dying of those, and the killing of those.
That's
and
right.
I just say, when we look at it, if they would have taken my son back to the store that night, they would have known he wasn't involved in the fight. Video showed that my son was not involved in the fight at all. And they refused to take him back to the store. The fight was on the outside, and my son actually didn't look like none of the description that was given. See, and then they told us that it was the store owner or the store clerk that had made the call. Well, I went to the store and I saw for myself that they didn't make the call. That call didn't come. That guy showed me on there. He said, "Well, look, if we didn't call, this is what it would have been." You know, and so they
So
lied.
in your own investigation,
Yeah.
you uncovered
Yeah.
several lies.
Yeah, I seen it by myself. See, that's why I say, no one told me. So that's why I would say everybody looking at the facts. But I see the facts. I see the cover. But and the thing is that we see the systemic failure all over. But we still will not come together. You can see it because that wasn't the only death. We were talking about there's 10 officers right now, 10 officers that are doing time. 10 of them. Now, that was a so-called elite task force that he put together. 10 of those individuals are doing time right now in federal prison because of the fact not only did they lie, but they was out there, man, they was violating people's civil rights. And see, and then I bring in the question the FBI and the Department of Justice when they investigated my son death. They told me straight up, well, they attempt to take the hope out of us when we met with them because they told me, Stephanie Finley told me that only 2% of the individuals that are investigated by the Department of Justice, FBI, are even brought to a grand jury because they could not tell the mindset of the officer at the time that my son was killed. So that's why I started realizing then, I told them, well, we could go on. But on top of that, they said they were going to conduct an independent investigation. So if it was independent, that means it should have been another autopsy by them, the FBI, Department of Justice, right, on my son. Well, they were talking about the resources that they didn't have or how that looked. Mm-hmm. But yet, instead of the time of my son's death, they found the resources to find out who was behind the mask of the individual that was doing the beheading of individuals. See, the ISIS individual that was beheaded. They had the resources to go find out who he was. At the same time, we got resources to go in Syria and find out, bomb and do all this, but yet and still you telling me that you don't have the resource to look at the life of an individual that is right here in the United States, but we can go abroad and utilize resources. So I told y'all didn't conduct no independent investigation. What y'all did was look at what was written on a piece of paper and agree with it.
And to cover up in the final moments of the program, we want to, of course, thank everyone for tuning in to the Community Defender. We're going to keep you updated on this. I want to thank you, Reverend White, for coming on the program. And of course, we're praying for you, but we're not just praying for you. We're working with you to bring about what we need, which is justice. May God continue to bless. I got a full. Awesome. May God continue to bless everyone in the sound of our voice who wants what's right, and let us continue to move forward as a people, and let's make sure that we curtail our Christmas spending in light of these events. If they can still get you money while they're killing you, then that's a problem. God bless y'all. Hope to see you soon, and we'll be right back with you next time with another installment of the Community Defender Talk Show. God bless you.
You got 30 seconds. Okay.
So I still got
30 seconds.
in that. Then now they're telling me I got 30 seconds. Just make sure you tune in next time to the Community Defender and watch the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's press conference from the Watergate Hotel. Make sure you check that out, and I look forward to discussing that with you next time. We're gonna have probably a couple of shows on just the content of that.